Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to Louisiana Homestead. Today I'm going to be sharing my experience with y'all of canning some butter. This will be my first time. I did see this done on YouTube, and I'm hoping I'll have the same great turnout that these other guys did. So let me just show you what I've got together so far. Obviously, I'm going to be needing some butter. I've got 7 of the unsalted, and I've got 7 of the salted. The reason is because the lady that I seen can these on YouTube, she used this same method where she used half and a half. She used this same method where she used half salted and half unsalted. She said when she had used just the salted one that it was really too salty for some reason. So I'm gonna follow her instructions and do it the same way that she did. These that I got are £1 a piece. So each one has 4 sticks. Each stick is a half of a cup. These little pint container jars that I'm going to be using today is actually going to hold 2 of those sticks. But to get them in here, I'm going to have to melt the butter first. So what I've done is I made sure that I had enough clean little jars here to completely fill with all of this butter that I've got. I've made sure that I have enough lids here and enough bands to complete my project as well. I'm going to be using this All-American pressure canner. I can stack these, so I'm going to be, you see you have to have something on the bottom to keep your jars off the bottom of the pot. So I'll put some jars here, and then I'll put this on top of those jars once it fills up, and I'll put some more jars on top of this. And I'll still be able to close it with my lid. Now anytime you are pressure canning with this one, you need to make sure that the steam vent is open. That's the steam vent there. I don't know if you can see, but I can see light through it. For this one also, I'll be taking some oil and greasing the rim of this. That's what helps to make the seal on this pressure cooker. So every time I use it, I go through those 2 steps, putting the oil and making sure this is cleared. The other equipment I'm going to need is a ladle. So once my butter is melted, I'm going to be using this stainless steel pot to melt it. I'll be able to get it out of there with a ladle. I have something to get it out with. And I have a nice wide mouth funnel to fit into these jars so that when I put my butter in, I won't be getting it all over the place and on the rim and everywhere else. Also, I have this to help me get the jars in and out once the canning is complete. And I might even use them when I'm setting them in there because the water will be hot at that point. So definitely going to need that. I've got my book for my canner just to make sure I'm doing everything right. Got my timers. I have 2 of them. I'll probably just use one. I've got a pot holder to make sure I don't burn myself. And I've got a ruler here just to measure the amount of water that I'm going to put in the bottom of my canner. So the first thing I'm going to do is unwrap all this butter and get it into the pot on a very low heat and start melting it. And I'll be stirring it to make sure it doesn't stick. Alright guys, this is how it's looking, and I still have several of them to unwrap. And I just want to say that I started canning this, I just want to say that when I started this project, I bought this butter around, I think around Easter time actually. So I've had it for a little while. I've been meaning to get around to it. But this is just a name, this is not a name brand butter. This is a store brand butter. And what I did was I tried to get a good deal on some butter. You know, I know you can usually get it at Walmart. The woman that I seen can this on YouTube actually used the Walmart brand. She said she had used a more expensive brand, the LOL she called it. And that it didn't do as well. She said the cheaper butter actually did better for her canning project. And she said she's been doing this for years and years. She's had butter last for over 5 years on the shelf using this method. If you look this up in like a ball canning book or something like that, you're not going to find it. There's just not, it's just not there. So you will be doing this at your own risk because you don't have like an approved method through the Canning Association or whatever it is. You don't have an approved method through them, so you're doing like this at your own risk. But a lot of people have done it. The lady who I seen doing it was from Homestead Hort, and I totally trust her. I've been watching her for years. She's awesome, and like she said, she's been doing this for over 5 years because she's had butter last her for over 5 years. So obviously it works. But she was saying that she uses the canning, the pressure canning method. Some people do this without canning it, you know, the pressure canner. But she said that that method does not last as long. The jars of butter do not last as long on the shelf like that. So I wanted something that was going to last a long time on the shelf, and I wanted to get my butter at the best price that I possibly could, because butter is expensive and I hardly ever see butter come on sale. So when I saw it come on sale, I went up, I said, well, now's the time for me to try this canning of butter. I like butter. We like butter here. We eat a good bit of it. And it would be nice to have some on the shelf if something would happen to where you couldn't get it at the stores, you know. Not saying that would ever happen, but you just never know. We are living in times of uncertainty, that's for sure. And when I watched her can the butter, she said the hardest part about it was unwrapping it, because it does take a little while to unwrap this much butter. But it's not hard, it's just time consuming. That's the other thing about canning, is it's time consuming. It's not really hard, it's just time consuming. You have to be able, like for this project, I set aside today, you know, I didn't plan anything else major for today. This is my major project for today because it's time consuming. It's going to take a while. Last night, or yesterday evening rather, I got all these jars out and together. I didn't even do that part today. I did that yesterday. That's how time consuming this is. I knew better than to wait until today to get my jars out and ready, because some of my jars I had was in the attic. They was kind of spread out here and there, and I knew that. So I knew I needed to get them out and wash them and clean them and have them set out and ready. Well, some of them was brand new and some of them was dusty. So I had to wash them, and I put them in the rack to dry because I wanted dry jars for this. I don't want any water in my butter at all. So I have them completely dried. There's some preparation that goes into it as well, you see. It's a lot of preparation. I waited for the butter to come on sale, so I had to wait on that. And then, like the jars have been so expensive lately. A few years ago, I knew I wanted to do some canning, and I knew I would need a lot of jars to do that. And what I did was, instead of going and buy them brand new, because they're so expensive brand new, I took advantage of a little program we have on our local radio here. It's called Swap Shop. And I got on there and I asked if anybody had some jars, used jars, because you can reuse jars and they're sterile. You know, you sterilize them every time you use them. And someone called me. It was a man. He called me and he said that his mother had passed away years ago and that she did a lot of canning, and they had a bunch of her drawers, just like boxes and boxes of drawers, and they wasn't going to do any canning, and they said they really would love for somebody to use them, to put them to use. And you know, I had a drive, which Mr. E drove me. We had at least an hour drive to go and get them, but it was totally worth it. You know, I mean, I got boxes and boxes of drawers at a way better price. I mean, I still paid for them, but it was a way better price than if I would have bought them brand new. And the drawers were just as good as the ones that are made now, maybe even better, because you know how stuff made back then is better than the stuff they make nowadays. So, I mean, that was some preparation there as well. And then at the time I was doing that, I got online and I ordered me some lids. Now, some lids did come with the drawers that they gave me, or that I bought from them rather. But I still knew I was going to need some lids. And so I bought several of them online, the best ones that had the best reviews. I didn't get the cheaper ones because canning is hard. I say it's hard work. It's time consuming. And in a way it is hard work. So I didn't want to buy the cheapest lids and end up, you know, spending a lot of time and food and end up with a failed project because I had bought cheap lids. So I tried to buy some good lids. I would definitely recommend that. So anyway, I got all my drawers and lids and everything ready yesterday. Got my pots out, this one and the canning pot out yesterday. And just tried to get my stuff ready. This morning when I got up, I came and got this butter out of the refrigerator, so it wouldn't be like hard, you know, it can melt a little quicker for me. So I'm just saying, there's a little preparation that goes into it, but it's worth it. Like I started canning beans a while back, and now whenever I want beans, I don't have to put hard beans in a pot and wait all day and keep watching them all day. Now I just can them in the pressure canner, and whenever I want beans, I go get a jar out of the pantry and put it on the stove, and I have beans in 30 minutes. You know, I might add some onions and seasoning or some kind of sausage or something like that to it, but it's nothing like when I was cooking them all day long. So canning does pay off. Does pay off. Okay, so this is starting to melt. I actually do have butter fingers, y'all. Okay, let me show you inside this pot. Okay, you see that? It's starting to melt. I don't know if you can see that there, but that's melted butter right there. I got my electric stove burner set on 3. Give it a little stir. Make sure we're not sticking, which I don't think we are. It doesn't feel like it at all. And it's starting to melt. So that's good. Now while this is melting, I'm going to be preparing my canner, getting it ready with the right amount of water in it and heating up. Okay, here we are, melting very nicely. I've just stirred it. Here's the canner. I put almost 2 inches of water. You're supposed to have 2 to 3 inches, so I'm going to go ahead and make sure I have 2 inches of water in there. I've got this on a very low heat. I want to make sure I'm not burning this. I paid a good amount of money for this butter, so I don't want to mess this up. I don't want it to boil over. I'm not leaving it So I did pay for this butter, so I want to make sure that I don't mess this up. I'm not walking away from this pot while the butter is melting. I'm staying right here and I'm watching it. Now I'm doing it slow because I don't want it to scorch either. So it's going to take a little while, but it's going to be well worth it. Now, I definitely don't want it to boil over. Talk about I would have a mess. So I got it on low and it's melting very good. It's not giving me any trouble at all. Also, I wanted to mention that I checked the tops of all of these drawers to make sure that there's no chips in them. And I also examined them to make sure that there's no cracks in them. So these are all ready to go. Also, I've got these lids simmering. I'm going to let them get nice and hot so that I can have them sterilized and ready for use. It's going to soften up that rubber on them a little bit too, so that's the other reason I'm doing it. A lot of the brands nowadays say you don't have to do that, but I do it anyway, just as an extra precaution. This is melting nicely. It takes about 30 minutes to get it completely melted. And when it starts to simmer just a little bit, I'm going to turn it off and start ladling it into my jars. I want this water to be hot as well, because when I put this hot butter into these jars and put them into this water, I want everything to be the same temperature so that I have less chance of any jars breaking. Okay, I wanted to show y'all that I have some white vinegar here and a paper towel, because I'm going to be needing that to wipe off the tops of these drawers before I put the lids on them once I have the butter in. Since butter is obviously a fat, we need to wipe this off with something more than just water, the rims of these drawers. And I'm going to be using some white vinegar to do that. That's going to do the job, and it is necessary for the drawers to seal. I'm ready to start putting some butter into these jars, so let me get started. I'm going to leave about an inch of headspace in each one. I'm going to keep stirring it as I go, just to keep all of the solids and everything all mixed up well together. I'm going to keep giving it a good stir as I go. Okay, I'm going to go on ahead and wipe these rims off with this vinegar. I changed my paper towel because obviously you don't want that butter to build up, or you won't be cleaning the surface of the rim good if your paper towel's full of butter. Now you see how that's settled? There's some solids at the bottom. That's why I kept stirring my pot as I was filling my drawers, so that each drawer would have some of those solids in it. Okay, I took my time and I went over wiping the rims of these jars a couple of times just to make sure to get all the butter off of them. And I went back after they dried and checked them with my finger to make sure they was squeaky clean on top, just to make sure. I'm ready to start getting these lids on here. And I checked my lids too to make sure that they all looked uniform. I'm going to get my bands onto these, and I'm just tightening them down hand tight, not really cranking on them. You can really see the solids down in the bottom of those jars now. You see that white down in there? Okay, got them all tight, I think good enough. Just kind of checking them. I'm not trying to get them as tight as I can. I'm not that strong. They're not going to be that tight. I just want to make sure they don't boil over inside of themselves and break that seal. Okay, that's good. Now they're going to start going into the canner. Okay, let's start getting these in here. Okay, so there's the bottom of it filled, and you'll notice the water is still below the tops of the drawers, which is how they're supposed to be in a pressure canner. So I can put my lid on that and fill the rest of my drawers and put those into the canner as well. Okay guys, I've got my second layer in here, so I've got these double stacked with the little spacer in between and the spacer on the bottom. Now I'm going to put this lid on here, and I make sure that the pressure gauge is facing me, and I'm going to start closing it up. I'm going to go from opposite sides like this and tighten it up till I have them all on. Okay, everything's tightened down. I'm going to bring my fire up some until I can get a steady stream of steam coming up out of here. Okay, now that I have a steady stream of steam, I guess you can see it from this angle. I need to let that go for 10 minutes. Okay, it's been 10 minutes. I'm going to put my pressure gauge on top. For us, I'm going to set mine for 10 pounds of pressure, just like that. Now that I have the weight on, I'm going to wait for my pounds of pressure to come up to 10, which will be right there. So I've got a little ways to go. I'm going to be keeping an eye on it. It should only take a couple of minutes for it to come up to pressure, so I'm not going to be walking away. Okay, I've reached 10 pounds of pressure, and I've lowered my heat from high to 6, and I have mine marked because I can enough to know that's where it needs to be. Now that doesn't mean that your stove will be the same. You get to learn your stove and your pressure canner as you use them. Always follow the manufacturer's directions. You just want to be safe. I don't want this to get over 10 pounds of pressure, or at least not very much over 10 pounds of pressure. Now it shouldn't be very long that I start to hear my first jiggle on this pressure gauge. It's going to start to jiggle to release some of the pressure. So that's what I'm waiting for next. So I just heard my first jiggle. That means I'm going to set my timer for 70 minutes. That's the time for processing meat. Meat has fats in it, so that is the pressure, and that is the time that I'm going to be using. That's what the lady on Homestead used, so that's what I'm using as well. So guys, I'll meet you back here in 70 minutes and we'll see what we've got. Okay guys, I let mine process for 60 minutes instead of 70 because it seemed like it was time to cut it off. The pressure was building up a little more than I wanted it to. And I think 60 minutes is actually just fine for butter. So that's what I am trying. Now that I've got my pot turned off, I'm going to be waiting for my gauge to go all the way down to 0. You aren't supposed to remove the lid or the weight until the pressure comes down to 0. So when it does come down to 0, then I'll remove the weight. Okay, now that my pressure gauge is down below 0, I can remove the weight safely. And I'm going to use some protection because it is hot. Okay, so set that off to the side. I'm going to wait 2 minutes, and then I'm going to go on ahead and open the lid. Okay, I'll have some thick dish towels set on my countertop to put these hot drawers on, but right now I'm going to take the lid off of here. And this is still very hot. So I'm going to be using a pot holder to make sure I don't burn myself. Just take all these down and tighten them. And bring the bolts down. Okay. And I'm going to open this away from my face because I don't want the steam in my face. Okay, now I've got that lid off to the side, and I'm just going to start taking these out and setting them on to my towels here. My canner is very full. Y'all hear them sealing already? That's awesome. Okay, everything looks good on this first layer. So I'm just carefully going to get them out of here. I have them in here so tight it's kind of hard to get them out. But I can hear them sealing as I'm working. I noticed when I took the lid off, some of them, the little button wasn't down on them, but they're going down now. So it looks like it worked pretty good, y'all. Kind of excited about this. Oop. I want it to do this size jar because I don't like the idea of taking more butter out at one time than that. I usually, you know, when I'm using them in the ice box, I take one stick out at a time and I put it on the countertop. But I don't ever take out a whole 4 sticks and put on the countertop at once, especially in the summertime. But there's actually 2 sticks of butter in one of these small jars. But I wasn't going to try to pressure can in a smaller jar than this, because you have to have at least that 2 inches of water in the bottom of this canner. And for me to be able to take up all the space in it, I needed to use at least this tall of a jar. Okay, that's my first layer. Take this thing out of here. Let's see how much water is still in the canner. Okay, that was the one thing I was worried about, is that it would go too low, but there's still a lot of water still in the canner. Still plenty, 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 plenty. You see that? Plenty of water still in the canner. So I'm very pleased to see that. So I just need to go on ahead and get this second layer out. So I just need to go on ahead and get this second layer out, and then I'll show you what I have. Okay, so now I have all of the butter removed out of the canner. It's not in my ice box anymore, taking up all that room. It's gonna last a long time. They say 5 years or more on the shelf like this. You'll notice that there's that white sediment at the bottom. That is the milk solids. Now, I don't want them to cool like this completely. I want this milk solids to be mixed up in this oil, in this fat. That's one reason I started my project early this morning, and I actually started preparing for it yesterday, is because now that these are out of the canner, I'm not through with them. I'm going to have to make sure that those solids are mixed into the oil. So in about an hour or so, when they've cooled down slightly, I'm going to come and give the jars a little shake, a little rotation. And I'll be doing that throughout the day until they actually solidify. I may even move them into the refrigerator once they've got into a cool enough point where I can do that. So I'll meet you back in an hour and I'll give them a little shake. Okay, so it's been an hour. They're cooled enough to where I can at least touch them. You see how they've got that white still on the bottom? I'm going to tighten my bands just a little bit on each one of them, because I'm going to be shaking these jars a good bit. And I have to tell you, all of them did seal. I'm very glad of that. All the little buttons on all of them did go down. But as you can see, they need to be tightened just a little bit. So I'm going to go on ahead through each of them and tighten them up a little like this, so that when I shake them, I don't, they're still pretty hot. These on this side are even hotter for some reason. That might have been the ones that was in the bottom, I don't know. But anyways, there we go. Okay, so here's my first one. You see how it's settled on the bottom there? Try to shake it up and get all those milk solids mixed up well into the entire mixture here. So what I'm going to do is just go through each one of them and do this with it. And I'll come back ever so often as I'm passing by here and give them a good little shake. You see, if I wouldn't have stirred this while I was canning it, all this white stuff would have went down into the bottom, and I would have ended up with a jar full of nothing but milk solids. Instead, it's all evenly distributed into each jar because I stirred it as I was putting them into the jars, consistently stirring. Okay, so y'all don't need to see me shake every one of these. I'm going to continue until I get this all shook up, and then I'll meet you back a little later. Okay, I've shaken these a few times already. It's been a couple of hours. I put a fan in here blowing right on them, and I've got an air conditioner in here as well. The jars are actually very cool to touch. You can see some of those little white solids are starting to stay suspended now when I come in here and shake them. I hadn't shaken them in a little while, and some of the stuff is suspended, but as you can see, there's still a lot of it on the bottom. So I'm still having to come in here and shake them up every now and then. So I just wanted to show you where we was at this point. Okay guys, after a while I said I'm going to put these in the freezer where I can speed this process up a little bit. So I left them in there for 30 minutes and came back, and let me tell you, it sped the process up very quickly. Actually, some of them a little more quickly than I wanted to, because I had to shake them pretty vigorously to get the mixed. So all of these, I got those mixed very well. As you can see, they're a little liquidy, but not much at all. But they are, the milk solids are suspended in the jars very well now in all of these. But in these, I waited a little too long. Some of the solids are still on the bottom, but it's not a big deal. Whenever I get them out to use them, I'm gonna let them get room temperature and I'll just stir them up. So it's not a big deal, but I just wanted to let you know, if you put them in the freezer to speed up the process, and I didn't do that when the drawers was hot. Now, the drawers was already cool when I did that. It will speed it up tremendously. So just letting you know. Anyway, I enjoyed my little butter making. I got it all done. I hope that you might have learned a little something, and I hope you'll like, share, and subscribe. Until next time, bye.